I'm Tim. I'm Tim Porter. I'm the CEO of Application Studio, and my breakout session today is developing Airforce business agility. So we're going to spend the next 50 minutes kind of chatting, kind of sharing where I see the Airforce and DoD is trying to go to develop business agility, and how some of the things that we've done as a contractor to help the Airforce mainly get to that point, right? So I welcome any questions that you guys have throughout the conversation, or if you want to wait to the end, by all means, but I welcome the conversation. This is just a few things that I kind of thought that would be good information to know, because the buzzwords now is DevOps, DevSecOps, CI/CD pipeline, CI/CD approaches, and what does that mean? What does that mean as solution architects? What does that mean as product owners? What does that mean as managers? What does that mean as stakeholders? And what does that mean as users? Okay, and there's a lot of stuff going on, right? And so we're going to talk about some of the problems. We're going to talk about the need. There's a lot of good news. There's a lot of good things that's happening. Why are we seeing the transition from DevOps to DevSecOps? Okay, and what is that about? And then we're going to share some success stories on how we're transitioning teams and programs from waterfall to Agile. I like this touchscreen. I need a real touchscreen. So I kind of wanted to preface it from understanding that we're a small business, and I like to say that we've been very blessed to be strategically helping programs and helping customers implement their DevOps approaches, implement their DevOps pipeline, and thinking about how do we put our CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery into play, because that's a big thing, right? And what we've seen is, again, there's a lot of buzzwords that's being thrown out there, and they expect us all to be able to implement it from the start, right? It's like, oh, we got to go Agile. Well, we got to be Agile tomorrow. Well, you don't just become Agile overnight, right? And now with DevOps, like, hey, we want DevOps. Well, you just can't become DevOps overnight. There's a journey to get there, right? So we have a little history from as a small business organization on how we have helped Gunther Air Force Base. We love Gunther. We love working with Gunther because they're willing to take risks. They're willing to open up and say, hey, how do we do this together? And I think that's the key to DevOps now. And how do we communicate? How do we collaborate? And how do we show that transparency to be able to move that needle? So some ways that we've been able to do that as an organization is being trained and developing our solution architects who historically has that expertise and has that skill and has that knowledge, but being able to say, hey, we kind of need to go down this specific path for this specific technology, because a lot of these technologies now are starting to come together and building your DevOps pipeline and automate things. So we've done some things that we invested to be able to move that needle, right? So what's the problem? So anyone in here have a perfect DevOps pipeline? Anyone in here are starting to think about how you implement your DevOps pipeline? Okay. Do you guys right now have any problems, any challenges, any things that you're dealing with? We all do, right? So what we're saying here is, we all have problems. We historically have been siloed, and what we're trying to do now is we're trying to have the development teams and the operations all communicate together, okay? One thing that we've done that was very that has been very successful for us is moving the DevOps, the development team closer to our customer. Okay, so we're from San Antonio, Texas, and we're performing work here in Montgomery. Well, we immediately opened up an office here so we can communicate, so we can collaborate. Because now with DevOps and Agile in general, face-to-face, you know the Agile Manifesto, face-to-face is one of the most important practices, right? So we opened up an office to be able to break down these silos historically that was there and be able to start communicating more. The other thing for us that I share is, I think one of the problems historically was you have people in the same office sitting beside each other who was sending an email versus getting up to go talk to that person, okay? And so what we've done was intentionally, you know, with my solution architects and our leaders saying, hey, we need to get up and go talk to that person. Yes, sending an email is great, but we have to be intentional and start creating the right culture and the right mindset of, hey, Robert, nice to meet you. Tim, thanks for that email. Since I'm already here, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Because now you can get a clear understanding versus going back and forth through email. Because, you know, if you're like me, sometimes what you get in the email, you're thinking, what the hell were they thinking? You know what I'm saying? And then when you go talk to them, you're like, oh, that was nothing what they were trying to say. You know what I'm saying? So that's been a problem historically, and I think that what we have to do to move that needle is we have to be intentional about our communication. We have to be intentional about our face-to-face engagement. We have to be intentional about bringing teams together. Because, let's face it, we're all people, and if we can just stay in our little space and not have to communicate too much, and I can just work on my thing and just throw it over the fence, I'm gonna keep being happy with that, right? So that's what we're trying to change, and that's the problem that we're trying to solve. And I like to say we have to solve that with one conversation at a time. One conversation at a time, okay? And yeah, we got our development team, we have our operations team, but now we have our test group, we have our security group. We need to bring all those people together and start having some of those conversations and say, hey security, I know you sent me this long email, but tell me what does that mean to you in plain English, so I can really understand it and the development team can really understand it. And I give you guys our secret sauce, right? The way that we do it is we go to security and we say, hey Anthony, man, I heard so many great things about you. Man, I hear you're moving the needle. You know, it would be very, very awesome for these guys to hear from you versus hearing from me what you're going to tell me. Would you be willing to come to the meeting? I know you're busy, and come share. Oh, sure, I can do that. And you're starting to bring them in, right? So that's kind of how we started doing it early on, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to move the needle together, right? So, where have we started, okay? So, waterfall, you guys, we all know what waterfall is about. And I like to be honest and say, we're still not complete Agile. We're still doing a hybrid, okay? And we have to be flexible and honest and open with ourselves on, you know, we may not be waiting to get all the requirements up front and different things like that, but we're still trying to move the needle here in our Agile approach. And the way we're starting to move that needle now is historically what may have taken 30, 45, 60 days, we're bringing those conversations, we're bringing the key players to the table, and now within our 2 and 3 week sprints, we're delivering and we're seeing things and we're holding teams accountable and we're delivering the right artifacts and things like that. Now, yes, does it still going to take some time to go to production? Possibly. Well, the thing about it, and what I like to say is, as long as we're having those conversations and we're trying to be intentional about what we need and say, hey, can we test something over the next, 3 months. 3 months is way better than historically a year, right? And so as long as you're having those conversations and being intentional about it, I really feel that where we started is not going to be where we're going to end up at. So some of the challenges, right? Resistance to change. I just heard this great quote last week, and now I have it at the bottom of my email, right? It says something like, if you don't like change, you're gonna like being something. If you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less. And I saw that up at in Austin at the Futures Command, and I immediately jumped on Google and it was like, man, I love that. Who said it? And it was one of the generals, right? And so I put it at the bottom of my email because I was like, that's my mentality. That's the way I think, right? And with DevOps, right? Historically, we had the development team or the operations team or the sustainment team. We would just go back and forth. We would go back and forth, okay? What I like to tell people is, I don't know if you guys remember, but several years ago, when I was in the corporate world, I'm a software developer developing, and we had a deliverable, right? We had to show something to the customer. And we would throw it over the fence knowing that it wasn't complete. But we would throw it over the fence and give it to the customer, and then the customer would come back and say, well, hey, it's not doing X, Y, and Z. And what do we always say? Well, it worked for us. Because what were you doing? You're trying to buy yourself more time, right? You had a deliverable, you was trying to do the best you could to get something, but it didn't always work the way that you wanted to, right? But you would say, hey, it worked for my team, so let me go back and see what's happening, and I'll get back with you, right? Am I the only person who did that? Okay? So what we're saying here is, yes, there's resistance to change, okay? And what I like to say is, we just have to communicate with the people to say, hey, we know that this may feel uncomfortable. We know that there's some training, a learning curve that we have to learn. However, if we don't, we're kind of going to be irrelevant. So we're willing to do this together, so how can I help? What can I do to help support what I'm asking you to do, okay? So I think another thing has been too much focus on tools. What I like to say is you got to automate the right thing. There's a lot of terminology being thrown out there. It's like automate. Well, you got to automate the right stuff. And then you got to make sure that you're following and checking up on what you're automating. Because you can automate everything, but if you're not looking at it and it's broke, So these tools are only as good as the people that's using them, if you ask me. Because now with Agile development and DevOps, as we're automating things and things are changing quickly, that means we got to go back and look at what we automated to make sure that that script and everything is still good. You see what I'm saying? So it's very, very important. And then our dev and our ops tool sets clash. You have to figure out what's right for your environment. What I like to say is you have to figure out what's right for your context. And you have to be flexible within your context, okay? Because you just can't bring a tool in and say, hey, we want to bring in this new enhanced automation tool. Well, if it's within the government environment, we have to make sure that that tool is approved. And we have to make sure, how is that tool going to work on the government network and different things like that, right? So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about dev and ops, right? Okay, so the need. The need is we need more communication, we need more interactions, and what I like to tell people is, you just gotta get up and go talk to that person. Don't be scared. Get up, go talk to them, have some communication, figure out ways that we collaborate together, because what I like to tell people, I think honestly, that's our secret sauce. I think it's a lost art. You know, people don't want to talk to people on the phone anymore. Everybody wants to freaking text, right? The lost art really is communicating. Because when you communicate with someone, you can see in their eyes or on their face whether they understand what you're asking. And they can see whether they understand vice versa, right? It's so important nowadays. Because we've been in conversations to where we've like, okay, I can see that you're not understanding. Maybe the way I'm explaining it is a little hard. Hey, Kevin, can you explain it? Oh, okay. And then they get it, right? But I was able to see that off their face to understand, maybe, I don't know, I'm from Mississippi, maybe I'm talking too fast or something, right? And maybe I'm not the best person to always explain it, right? And so you can see that though, and that's so important nowadays, because the communication and the collaboration and the transparency, what we've seen and the feedback that we've heard was, wow, that is phenomenal. We're so excited. Our development teams, these guys historically, a lot of young people who have never been introduced to Agile, never been introduced to DevOps before, and then some people who've been doing it for a while and maybe have been stuck in some environments that just really haven't moved the needle. And when you bring that together, it's like, whoa, we can see purpose here. We can see, wow, everybody's excited about this. How can I help? I want to help more. Oh, I want to build this team. How can we do pair programming and all of these different type of things together? You got people who's really, really, really excited. And like I said, that just that communication and that collaboration. And then I think the most important thing is being transparent about not being perfect, right? I admit all the time, we're not perfect, and we admit our faults now versus historically, I was the guy saying, shit, it worked when I gave it to you. Must be your system, right? It's not me. Well, now we admit that if we're not perfect, we're like, hey, we know the iteration, we got to 90%. This 10%, here's where we didn't achieve what we thought we was going to achieve. Here's the reason why. But you know what? We're going to bring that into the next iteration. If that's important to you as product owner, is that okay? Blah, blah, blah. And that open and honest and that transparent communication, what I like to say, it buys you brownie points. It buys you and it gets the teams to understand, okay, I can fail and not feel like I'm going to be, beaten over the head or something like that, right? It's so important for DevOps and bringing that business agility to the forefront now. Because if we're trying to move fast, and if we're trying to move in 2 and 3 weeks and deliver things now, we have to be able to fail fast and understand that, we're not perfect, right? So, the business value for DevOps. Okay? This is just a few. You may have some of your own that you're already using, that you're already thinking. These are just a few that I thought were important, right? Fewer defects. Okay? When we say fewer defects, when you have a good CI/CD pipeline in place, you have things automated, you can start seeing maybe where the breakages and codes are and fix those things quickly. You can start seeing how you can automate things quickly, and maybe you now have a script where it can stand up your Docker containers in your environment in minutes now, and if one goes down, hey, no big deal because I can stand one back up now in 5 minutes, different things like that. So fewer defects, because also you have the development teams thinking like DevOps solution architects at the development level. Why? Because they're checking their code in, the code is being scanned by all the different tools that's out there now. So it's helping make sure that we're getting good code out there so that the DevOps people can start pushing that code to production, right? More frequent deployments. We all hear about small batches. That means something to all of us differently, right? It all depends on your context, what small batches mean to you. What small batches means to us is working with our product owners and working with our program managers. We have that transparent communication and that open communication to say, hey, here's what we're thinking. Maybe in this release, we have 3 stories that have low security impact and we can get this out quickly. How does that sound? Oh, that sounds amazing. So you all have to think about what small batches mean to you and have that conversation with your product owners and your program management offices to figure out, you know, what they're going to be comfortable with. Okay? But we do know that the smaller the batch, the quicker it can get out, right? How many people in here is taking one Agile safe class? I'm sorry, one scale Agile class. Anybody taking one scale Agile class? And have you guys did the penny exercise about flow? Okay, because basically what the exercise shows is, you know, what I like to say again from Mississippi, right? I hear all these cool sayings, right? You can't get a golf ball through a garden hose, right? It's just not gonna. It's not gonna go. But maybe if you have a little marble and you put it through a garden hose, it'll flow because it's smaller batches that get through the system, right? So that's what you got to be thinking about. How much smaller batches that you can get through the system. Faster fixes, fix forward. Okay. Now what we're saying is that we have smaller batches. We know exactly what we're trying to push through. Well, if there's a problem, we can fix it forward now versus pulling it back. How many people are on programs to where you're going to production, you're trying to push it, it doesn't work, you spent hours over the weekend doing your dark time trying to push it, and then it doesn't get there, and then you got to roll it all back. Okay? So what we're saying is, if we can get smaller batches, maybe we can remove some of those impediments to know exactly what we're pushing. Historically, we would push a lot of stuff. I used to work at the newspaper in San Antonio. We worked all weekend trying to put out all of these updates, right? Come Monday, it never worked. And then we couldn't figure out, well, what's the problem? Because we pushed too much stuff. Okay? So what we're saying now is, if we have smaller batches, okay, we know what we're pushing out, we can, stop touching the screen so much, we know what we can fix, right? And then we have faster recovery with containerization up in the cloud, different things like that, right? So that's what we're trying to get at. We have happier and more engaged teams. How many people are on high-performing teams currently? Okay, a few people. Okay, so how many people has heard about high-performing teams? Okay, so why would you guys say that you're not on a high-performing team? What does a high-performing team mean to you?
Get things done.
To get things done? Okay.
Quality and throughput.
Quality and throughput.
Collaboration.
Collaboration. Okay. So I'm pretty sure you're moving toward that though, right? If you're not on a high-performing team, you're already starting to move that needle, right? And to say, hey, we want more collaboration. We want more throughput. We want all of these things, okay? Because I truly feel the more happier, the more engaged teams you have, the better quality product that you're going to get out there, especially when the teams are working together. And here's what I think DevOps means, right? Especially in trying to move fast. Historically, you have people, IT people, right? We like to say, you know, this is ours. When you start sharing and you start developing and you start building people, okay, you have more engaged, more happier people. Because people want to learn. They want that knowledge. They want to be able to share, right? And the way we do it with our solution architects, we're very intentional on how they build up the rest of the development team. Share your knowledge. Yes, we know that you have all this knowledge historically. Nope, if I share this knowledge, that means you're going to get rid of it. No, we're trying to build people. We're trying to build a team. That way you can go home and enjoy your kids' first day at school. But if you're always here, you always got to be here. If you share that knowledge, hey, yeah, take some time off. Dave got it. He knows what to do too. Okay? So I really believe in this. Happier, more engaged people, collaborative working. Again, we have these cool collaborative working environments. I'm ex-military. If you're ex-military or military, you know that we're very rigid, right? I jumped out of airplanes for 10 years, very rigid. And so when the guys came to me and said, you know, we need this cooler, collaborative working environment. And I'm like, don't we got an office? What you guys talking about, right? And so, you know, I had to learn myself. And when I called the guys up and I'm like, hey guys, we're gonna buy some, we're gonna get a pool table and this machine, and we're gonna get these video games and put them in the office. They were like, who ate you? Like, you have to have this collaborative, fun working environment, right? So people can work and then, hey, take a break. Relax, you know? It's almost like, you know, everything we're seeing is almost like these startup communities, right? You gotta have this cool, fun stuff for some of these young people, right? Transparency, communication up front. We've been talking about that, but I think the most important thing here when it comes to that business value is having your customer to be able to really have that open and transparent communication. That is so important. And I think that's what's been helping us be able to move that needle, especially in a DevOps environment. So if you're paying attention out there, a lot of organizations have different approaches to DevOps, okay? Scrum Alliance have their approach, Skill Agile have their approach, the DevOps Institute have their approach. Everyone kind of have their own approach. I think PMI also have their own approach to DevOps because it's a big thing, right? It's a big buzzword. So I'm just kind of sharing, there's two different ones. There's comms and then Safe Agile use what we call the calmer approach to DevOps. Culture, automation, lean flow, measurement, and recover, right? What they say is culture change comes last because you're on a journey, okay? You're trying to get people to, again, that communication, that collaboration, that culture shift, that mindset of, yes, small batches, communication, transparency, working together, right? Automation, automate the right things, okay? What are some small tools that we can start with, okay? And I give you guys a good example of how no one's perfect, right? When we started automating, I was like, hey, you know, for one, we have to do it because of contract, but two, we should be doing it anyway, right? And let's start automating things. And so the first demo, I didn't see much automation, okay? And I kind of just, you know, stepped back, had some conversations, and then I was like, yeah, I get it, but we gotta start automating, right? And very smart people came back the next demo, didn't see much automation. It's like, you know, hey, what's going on? And what I learned was, okay, where do we start? Because it was this big thing. And so sometimes we want to bite off the big elephant, right? And it's like, man, this elephant is so big, where do we even start? And we get wrapped around where we're starting before we know it, time is passing, right? So I said, hey, we're agile. Let's just start with one story and let's do that story. And then we can learn something. But you know what? Bring everybody to the table so everyone is on the same page on this one story, because then we got consistency going forward, right? And it turned out to be hugely successful. And so what I've seen is, I think sometimes us as key leaders, we have to also understand what we're asking our people to do. So if they get hung up, we can kind of provide some guidance to say, did you think about X, Y, and Z? Oh, man, I didn't think about that. That's good feedback. And then we have 2 weeks to figure it out and see whether it works or not. So that's what I like about this whole automation piece here, right? And then lean flow is we're trying to get smaller batches, and we're trying to make sure that it flows through the system properly. And when we say flow through the system, you know, we're trying to get it all the way out to production now, into the warfighter's hands, because to me, that's when the real work starts, right? When it's in the warfighter hands and they can give us some feedback that this is really helping or not, okay? And then measurements. We want to measure everything. We're measuring how our environments are being stood up, how long they're being stood up, all of these different type things. We're measuring our test coverage, all of these different type things that is going to help us improve. When we do our demos, we have our solution architects, they're looking at the servers, they're looking at the response time to see whether there's some things that we can improve on the back end to make sure that the user can log in faster and all of these different type things, right? So we're trying to really measure a lot of things. And then recovery. How are we thinking about recovery? And you guys know back in the day, we call it disaster recovery, and now it's just how are we trying to recover fast? So my question to you guys is, what's in your tool chain? Okay, what tools are you guys using within your organization, within your programs that tells your story of your CI/CD pipeline, your CI/CD approach? Okay, these are when we're thinking about the development tools, we're thinking about our CI/CD and how we're automating when the developer checks things in. How are we working with our test cases and our automation? How are we working with our version control? And how are we getting things out to where we have continuous monitoring now? Okay, so what's in your CI/CD pipeline, and what's missing in your CI/CD pipeline? And what's missing is, whatever you see is missing, you want to go out there and do some research and say, hey, what is this tool about? What is this tool about? And then ask some questions to be able to bring some of those things into your tool set. And then what I found to be very, very helpful is a lot of these tools that we use in the commercial space, and we have the conversation with our government partners, has been extremely helpful, because then we're understanding, yes, hey, we already have that in the pipeline. Oh, wow, that is beautiful. And so something that historically we may have started on and it switched to the government environment, it may look a little different. Think of Jura, and now we're using same thing, but on the government environment, it's a little bit different, but you kind of have that foundation and you have that knowledge to be able to move that needle, right? So there's a lot of front-end frameworks. Okay, information assurance is very, very big now. Okay, the infrastructure, what infrastructure are we using? And then configuration management with our artifacts and different things like that, right? Now, what I will say is, that seems like a lot of stuff, right? Well, again, you have to figure out, based on your context, based on your environment, what do you need to be able to implement a good CI/CD pipeline. And what I would say is, don't get wrapped around the needle saying, well, it's going to take us forever to figure out what we're trying to use. I would start with some baseline, and then just remember, every 2 weeks, you're basically just determining a benefit hypothesis. Do I need something more? If so, okay, let's have some communications to bring that in, right? And so I think that's the most important piece, and that's basically what we did. So the good news is systems thinking, right? We hear this a lot. And what we're trying to say here is we're trying to build scalability. We're trying to build organizations. We're trying to build teams without optimizing another team. So what do we mean there? What we mean is if we don't develop our people, if we're not doing pair programming, if we're not bringing dev and the operation together now to create our DevOps, then we may have a bottleneck over here that we don't even know about. We sub-optimize this other group, right? You can have this amazing development team, but if we can't get it out to production because our operations suck, let's be honest, that's not good, right? So we want to make sure we're developing the whole pipeline and we're bringing everyone together, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to create more happier, engaged people. When you have more happier, engaged people, what we've seen is your pipeline, I mean, just amazing things start coming together to be able to move that needle, okay? So that's what we're saying here as we're thinking about systems thinking and having that agility and that flexibility to be able to sustain ourselves down the road. So, why does it work? Because what I like to say is if you follow the principles, okay, the principles remain the same, okay? You got to adhere to the principles though. What happens is, what we've seen is people start getting roadblocks and then they go back to the old method. That's a no-go, okay? You have to stay and follow those principles, okay? The practices may change, okay? The tools may change, but if you got a principle of, hey, we're gonna talk every single day in our daily stand-up, okay? And we're gonna communicate face-to-face, and we're gonna continue to do that, eventually you're gonna get over the hard part, and people's gonna be able to communicate without you're having to say, wait, why don't you just call that person? They're gonna do it on their own, right? And things are gonna start happening pretty fast. And then we have to have the management of thinking about having that, what I like to say, controlled environment, right? We still have to make sure we're working on the right requirements, okay? We still have to remember that people do all the work, and we have to put people first, okay? It's a big tenet for me. People do all the work, we gotta take care of people, right? Every single time we have a demo, we always have a sprint MVP. Every single time, okay? And let me tell you how much these guys love it. Because every single time we give them Starbucks gift cards, right? Like 10 bucks Starbucks gift card for all the MVPs. And when I forget, they remind me. They remind me. But you know what that tells me? They value that. And they value voting on each other who they feel would be the MVP. See what I'm saying? People first, right? And so, and then we gotta create this amazing environment, because at the end of the day, we're trying to deliver purpose and value to our customer and our stakeholders, who is the warfighter. Okay, I used to be in the Army, and you know, now we can get those capabilities in their hands a whole lot faster. You know, I think it would help, right? And then there's a lot of relationships going on, okay, within the DevSecOps teams. Okay, we got some different collaboration with stakeholders, a lot of communication with the development, security, operations. We got to bring all of these teams together. A lot of things that we got to be thinking about, because there's a lot of benefit that can be had. We have to have version control. Okay, we got to be using Git and all of these different type of things. We got to be thinking about, hey, when you got 40 and 50 and 200 developers on a project, how are we doing branches? How are we checking things back in? Okay, there's a lot of version and source control that's going on that we have to be intentional about, and we have to be thinking about. We have to be implementing test-driven development early on, because that's going to help with our CI/CD pipeline, right? Because this is one of the artifacts, our test cases, that our DevOps team need in order to create that security assessment plan. To say, yep, this is what the teams have worked on, here's all the artifacts that support that, okay? And it all starts with test-driven development, writing good test cases, understanding what the acceptance criteria definition of done is, right? Okay? So how have we transitioned? What I like to say is, again, we have been very blessed. We received an opportunity at Gunther, and we haven't looked back. We have brought collaboration, transparency, open honesty. I like to say that they were ready for it because it takes two to tango, right? You just can't do it yourself. I like to say that they were ready for it. And our secret sauce was being a gold partner to be able to train and certify our teams. We brought that value add to the table to say, hey, we need to build the whole team. Because if we just built ourselves, we sub-optimize our government side. So we built everyone, okay? And we started with leading safe training first, then we did safer teams. We trained the roles of product owner and DevOps. We trained in Jira, okay? We intentionally became subject matter experts in Jira, okay? We invested a lot of money and said, hey, we're gonna become subject matter experts, okay? We became subject matter experts in test-driven development, okay? And then we started working on that CI/CD pipeline. And so this is just some of the successes, and we have went from, historically, we received what I like to say a very small opportunity to where now I have my partners here at FTC to where we just won the ACES contract together, and it was been a 2-year journey of continually working together, developing teams, developing our government partners, having that open, honest transparency, having that communication together that allowed us to now be where we're at, performing on the ACES contract. So that's how we've transitioned. So what I like to say is take small, incremental pieces, right? Again, just remember, what I've seen is sometimes teams get wrapped around the axle and they don't know where to start, okay? You gotta take small incremental pieces, and then the other thing is we have to be honest with ourselves, okay? Sometimes the person who's been there, been doing it for the last 20 years, may not be the person that's ready for change. We've had some good conversations with people, and in the end of the day, I've respected those people more when they came back to me and just said, hey Tim, I'm not ready for this change. I said, man, thank you so much for letting me know. I respect that more because now I don't have to waste my time trying to convince you that this is something that you need to do. You're like, I'm just ready to just turn my hat in. Well, I appreciate it. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes we try to force change on people. Sometimes people are not ready for change, okay? And we have to accept that, okay? Early on, I didn't accept it, right? I'm like, yo, you gotta change. But you have to accept that, and I think that's what's been important. I think that's what's going to be important for you guys, DevOps, pipeline, and how you're going to get that business agility on your programs and into your customers' hands to be very, very successful. So, are there any questions?
Can we get access to the presentation?
I think so. Yes. I'm almost positive it's going to be on the site.
You do your training in San Antonio, or do you go on the road?
Yeah, there's some brochures up here for our training. So we go on the road. We go everywhere. We have offices in San Antonio. We have an office here in Montgomery. We have an office in outside of Hill Airforce Base. We have offices in Boston, and we get ready to open up an office in DC. So we're agile, right? We'll come to wherever you need training.
Can you do training on the web?
So there's a difference, right? So with Scale Agile, it has to be in person, okay? And understand that not every organization is going Scale Agile though, okay? And so we're also a partner of IC Agile. So those classes we can do virtually, okay? So give you an example, I won't call their name, but it starts with KR, reached out to us recently, is like, hey, can you guys deliver a course, because we want a hands-on course to teach our managers and leaders and stakeholders DevOps, right? And so we certify our Foundation of DevOps course, and that we go in now with laptops to where we have all the software and everything configured, right? Because at the end of the day, our philosophy is, long as you can get an understanding, again, what version control tool you may use, let's not get wrapped around it, but just having an understanding of how it's being used give you a better understanding, right? So this course here, we can't deliver it virtually. So safe classes we can't, but I see Agile classes, we can deliver it virtually.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, you mentioned Jira.
Mhm.
What other, GitHub,
Yeah, we use GitHub.
Team Foundation server?
Yeah, we have experience with Team Foundation, but we're using on all of our contracts. Tell them what we're using.
We use Git, and we use GitHub.
That's your preferred.
I mean, TFS is actually
Gee.
Git.
We're doing work for the VA and they make us use Team.
Yeah. So we prototype how you can use TFS and automate your whole pipeline. Yeah. Great questions. Any other questions? Well, hey, thank you guys for attending. I hope you guys are having a great conference. I love this conference, and please reach out if you have any questions.